IIC PCI Conversations with Media. This is the 11th talk in that series. Today's topic is Civil Services and the Indian Constitution, and we have very distinguished speakers today. On my right, first is Mr. P.K. Tripathi. This 1977 batch IAS officer. He's former Chief Secretary of Delhi, and he was also chairman of the Public Grievances Commission. And he hails from Allahabad, from where he did his post-graduation in political science with a gold medal. Before joining IAS, he taught political science in Lucknow University, and he has served in Arunachal Pradesh, Andaman and Nicobar, in Delhi, of course, and he's been Secretary of NDMC also. As Joint Secretary of IMB Ministry, he was also Director of IIMC. At that time, Mr. Borker was also associated with IIMC's board. And the greatest contribution which Mr. Tripathi made to our national capital was the tree census. So, you know, in association with the Green Circle of Delhi, which Mr. Borker heads, we now have trees numbered in Delhi in almost all the colonies. So, for the green environment in Delhi, we can thank Mr. Tripathi and welcome to Press Club. And recently, both Mr. SANJEEV CHOPRA, who is on the right of Mr. Borker, and Mr. Tripathi were elected as executive members of India International Center as well. And then we have another speaker, Mr. SANJEEV CHOPRA. He belongs to 1985 batch of IAS, and he's from Kapurthala, Punjab, but he served in West Bengal as well, and his last assignment was as director of Bahadur Shastri, National Academy of Administration in Mussoorie. So he's turned out quite a few IAS batches. He was also written a book, We the People of the States of Bharat, the Making and Remaking of India's Internal Boundaries. He's based in Dehradun, and he's now the patron of literary festival, the Valley of Words International Literary Festival, which is held annually in Dehradun. And he's a regular contributor to the digital media, and several dailies. His columns appear on Sundays regularly, and he has also held Humphrey Fellowship at Cornell, Robert McNamara Fellowship with World Bank, and positions in Royal Asiatic Society, London, as well as in South Asia Institute, Harvard. He spent nearly 36 years in service with the government of India. And to moderate the discussion, we have Mr. Suhas, Borker, the regular feature, media person and the broadcaster, documentary filmmaker.
Qualified that, regular feature for this
series. For this series. Otherwise also. Among the three, Mr. Borker is also our member. He also happens to be a member of Press Club of India and a regular at Press Club. And he is a documentary filmmaker and an activist. He founded Citizens First TV in 1981. And he has interviewed and covered a galaxy of world leaders, including South African President Nelson Mandela. He set up 3 voluntary civil society groups initiatives in the 1990s, which are still working today. And the first one is Working Group on Alternative Strategies. The second is Green Circle of Delhi and Jan Prasad. He is also trustee of IIC. Before that, he was an executive on the executive board of Indian International Center. So, and I'm Vinay, Kumar, Secretary General of Press Club. So we will have the next one in July, the 12th in series at IIC. So we'll make that announcement in well in time. So for today's talk, Mr. Suhas, please take over.
Thank you, Vinay. I think
think we start this meeting with a small anecdote which I want to share with you. And this anecdote is about M.N. Butch, a very celebrated civil servant from the Madhya Pradesh cadre, IAS of the 1957 batch. So, Butch was the vice chairman of DDA, and one day it was raining and he came out of IIC and he was looking for a transport. And auto driver brought his three-wheeler and said, "Saab बैठिए, मैं आपको ले जाता हूँ." So he drove and he didn't give the opportunity for Butch Saab to even mention where he lived. He took him to that Saftajan, Teen Murti Lane address, and then he refused to accept the story, and Butch agreed that he won't. The scooter driver tells him that I had come some years back to Vikas Bhavan, where the DDA headquarters are, and I had come and I wanted to meet the big boss, which was M.N. Butch as the vice chairman. So they guided me to you, and then I was outside your room, and I asked the PN, Saab milenge? He said, yes, please go in, he'll be there. So he was busy with some files and I stood before his table. He asked me to sit down. So फिर आपने पूछा तुम आप बैठिए. He made him sit and then he said, क्या आपको काम है? So then he explained to him that the scooter driver is now saying that I have not got my allotment letter. I have paid up and everything. My house has been allotted, but I've been coming up 10 times and I have not got my letter of allotment. So then said that within the next half hour, I want the allotment letter given to him. So he got the letter. He said that I still remember you. You've been. I mean, he used very big words like you are a God's gift and all that. I mean, for us poor people, you got me this, and they were harassing me for years apart, and I was coming in and I don't get it. So then Butch writes in this book, India Reimagined, that that was like a Bharat Ratna to me. That the auto driver recognizing him on the streets of Delhi and saying that you stood by me, a poor man, and you got me this without a penny being spent or anything of that sort. So he says in this that this was a Bharat Ratna. Of course, Butch got a Padma Bhushan, that's another matter. But I mean, the way he said it is so emotional that, so that is it. Now we are two civil servants of.
And always up to date. But Suhas requested us that we must have the pleasure of addressing you, and we are thankful to him. See, the topic of today's discussion is very wide, and therefore, in the limited time we have, I have thought to restrict it to very few salient features. One is why the civil service, what is the requirement of civil service, what ideas shape the constitution to form the civil service, and then I would largely put on Delhi's experience, because I have here, so I will try to give my views and the chronology by which the civil service has been shaped in the NCT area of Delhi. The many things can be addressed in question and answer. If you look at the relationship between the constitution and the civil service, to my mind, it is shaped by various factors. The first factor itself is the freedom struggle, because the constitution is the outcome of the freedom struggle. And during the freedom struggle, there were contradictory opinions. One set of politicians believed that the civil service had been instruments of oppression, in the hands of the British government, and therefore there can be no freedom without abolishing the civil services, because they are the source of oppression and repression. On the other hand, they were wiser people, I would say, because I was told that Mr. C.D. Deshmukh topped the ICS examination. He was in two minds, whether he should join the civil service or he should join the political movement, because he was in London, but the movement was gathering and even young people wanted to be part of the freedom struggle. So he went to Bahadur and asked him, what should I do? So he said, there are enough people with me to fight for the independence of the country. So I don't require your services. There are enough people, there is a Josh and motivation. And therefore I would like you to go and join the civil service, learn how to do administration, because when we get freedom, we will require you. So you better train yourself into being a good civil servant. There are stories on the other side. Tripathi resigned from the ICS and joined the political side. Abindo also left. So, but there was a need, there was a set of politicians who felt and understood that there was a need for a civil service, especially to take the spirit of freedom forward. And as you all know that Sardar Patel, it is because of Sardar Patel that the civil services got its place in the constitution and in the role which has played in the country. Because he refused to take office till a provision is made, adequate provision was made for the civil services. And he rightly said that they are instruments. See, if they are the British, they will act. They are just instruments. The instrument can be for repression, the instrument can be for torture, the instrument can be for development, the instrument can be for education, and so many other features. So therefore this was one big debate which resulted in the need for civil service. The second important feature was, we were having a federal structure. A federal structure requires a person who understands not only the requirements of government of India and the union, but also requires the how to run state government right up to the district. Because the main, the fulcrum on which the whole government revolved was the district administration. Unless until you have a good district administration, you cannot have a good administration in the country. Because while the parliament can make the laws, the judiciary can interpret the laws, but you require a person on the ground who will deal with the nuts and bolts and solve the day-to-day problem. Because you cannot expect litigants to be every day in the court fighting for their rights. The system must ensure their rights. Only exception should be going to the courts. So therefore you require, and then India became a union of states. The word used in the constitution is it is a union of states. And that is important because at the time of independence, there are all types of states. There are princely states, so many of them. So therefore there was a need to integrate all these states into one union and somebody who can look after the national interest. And that person should also have experience of the district, the state and the nation. You cannot have one service which only looks after the national interest. Because the country is very diverse. The level of development is different. For example, when I was posted to Arunachal Pradesh, in Bombay, so Bombay was one of the better districts. But when you go towards China, it was all footmarks. The areas of Lunda, and these were basically ungoverned areas. See, some areas were very well governed, but when I went in 79, I still found that governance was very light in those areas. In fact, it was very interesting in Tamam that a group of people came to me. I was only officiating there, and they said, why don't you levy tax on me? Why is everything? I said, these are very surprising. Nobody wants to pay tax in UP from which I belong. Nobody wants to pay tax. Everybody wants कि लगान माफ करो. बोले नहीं, हम तो चाहते हैं कि आप हम पे टैक्स लगाएं, because they said कि when we were under Tibet rule, we used to pay tax. And secondly, they said it is important that we pay tax because then we have rights over you. Today you are like, the protector and giver, you are the giver and we are the takers. But if we pay tax, then we will have certain rights, so you will be accountable to us. So this is the diversity you can find, in the country. In another more, I went to a more distant area, Upper Somerset district. There, there was the furthest outpost from the district was Taksim, which was 14 days march. There was no road. You had to walk for 14 days.
From where to where?
From Daporizho to Taksim, which was on the border, and this is part of the district. And there was no road. They will, dig up. You literally are climbing the mountain without a road, and bridges are also not there. Just, hanging bridges is made of wooden planks tuned with wires, and it was not easy to walk across. So, such is the diversity of our country. So, you have to be sensitive to the needs of, diverse populations and diverse cultures. Now, cultural diversity also I saw there when I was posted in a place called Daporizho. There was a place called Taliha, which was the last notable point. उसके बाद फिर work था. So I was sitting in my office, and my peon came, and he told me कि why are you flying a flag? Because there the district magistrate's office used to have a national flag. He said it's not nice that you are flying a flag. I was surprised. What happened to him? Today he is questioning my basic existence. So I said, no, what is your problem? He said, my wife has been abducted. You are flying the national flag, I am working under you, and my wife has been abducted. So where is justice? And why should I work for you? And you are doing nothing, you are enjoying your tea. Now in tribal areas, one good thing is that they are not afraid of the administration. They will speak their mind. They will not be afraid of hiding their feelings. So I was surprised when I started inquiring, and I called the SP that we had to mobilize force, and we had to get this woman out because after all he is saying, what is the use of this question? My wife is abducted. So the high level was making all these preparations to march, because I had no choice. Actually I am not that brave, but I had no choice because I had to live up to my reputation in the eyes of this person. So a delegation came to me. So they came to know that I am planning to take police force, and they said, sir, his wife has been abducted, that is a fact, but she is very safe. We had made a mistake because we wanted to abduct somebody else, but unfortunately we mistook her, and now we have abducted her. And this fellow was telling me कि भाई भाई को पत्थर में रखा है, ठंड में रखा है, बोले बहुत आराम से है, उसको हम खाना खिला रहे हैं, उसकी सेवा कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वो गलती से हुआ है, वो गलती आपकी है. मैंने कहा गलती मेरी कैसे? He said there was a dispute between two villages, and we came to the DM's office, and the case was fought for 1 month because their system was there that their local customs, you can have the case to the local custom. So therefore, according to the local custom, and when they come to witnesses, they are there. So it is costly for the parties. And after 1 month, they said we were bankrupt, and the case was not decided. So we had no choice but to take the case in our hands. So when we saw this lady, we thought that she is from the other village. We have abducted her. But then you release her. But no, now we cannot release her. Now we have to pay her fine. Because we have done a wrong thing, so we are liable to pay her fine, but we want to force you to take a decision. Since you did not take a decision, you solve our problem, we will return the baby to you. So I am just giving this example, and I was surprised even after all I had to argue with them. I think this is not the way. and we are living in modern India, and the rule of law is there, so you better release her, but I will look into it. So after a lot of persuasion, this lady was released. So what I am saying is the diversity is immense around it. It's not one country, one language, one level of understanding. Each pocket has their own culture, and the civil service has to understand the local idiom in order to be effective. So the challenge, before the constitution was national integration, how to integrate all these areas into India. But then of course, partition, the law and order situation, the need for rehabilitation, all this, then the constitution is itself a visionary document. It guarantees you fundamental rights, directive principles. It gives a vision, all manner, rule of law, equality before law. All this is there. So you need somebody who will make and translate this happen into actual life. Now, rule of law, people blame the bureaucracy because bureaucracy, civil service is governed by rule of law. You have to follow rules, you have to follow procedures. You cannot be totally independent. Though sometimes you want to be, but you are bound by rule. So as you mentioned about Mr. Anambuj, I remember an incident. When I was working in DDA, one person came to me from the village and he said, you see, my land was acquired and Buddh Sahab was the vice chairman and I was not willing to give my land, but he came and he said, beta, ye sarak bani hai, please allow me to acquire this land. Now DDA had a system, the government had a system where if land is acquired, apart from compensation, so if you take all his land, where will he stay? So the system was to also give you a piece of land for your house. And the larger the land, the bigger the piece. Of course, on payment, but no problem, no loss. So he produced a paper before me. And that paper, Buddha Sahab ne likha tha, कि yes, I have acquired order for acquisition of the land, and he may be given so many yards. I put this with my and nothing has happened for 10 years.
10 years.
Now the point is, in bureaucracy, they have a rule of law, there is a procedure. The procedure is that the land acquisition collector, when making the award, will inform the land and building department. They will work out that this person is allowed or entitled to a piece of land of this quantity. Then that recommendation will go to the DDA. Then the seniority list will be prepared. And after that, so this procedure would used to take a few years. And if you don't apply, then you will never get it. So on the one hand, I had a great right that a person, very good bureaucrat like Mr. Bush has given a promise. And on the basis of his promise, the road has been made. But if I give it, I am bound to face inquiry. Because I will not have followed the procedures set by the government. It must be recommended by the land and building department, first recommended by the acquisition collector, then by the land and department, then it should go on the. So these are the type of challenges because sometimes people feel that bureaucrats, they are not bothered. But then law is more important, and the constitution itself has said that you are governed by the rule of law and you have to follow procedure. You cannot have discretion beyond a point. So all this, and then of course parliamentary system of government, where equality and merit-based system of selection is there. So all these things led to certain provisions in the constitution. There are many other provisions, but I am only concentrated basic ones. That first is Article 309. Under Article 309, the recruitment and conditions of service are provided. Both the state government and the union government have the power to set up civil services, whether it is for agriculture, health, PWD. So the power to create the services lies with the party under Section 309. I think time, otherwise I could read it, but I think this much is enough, we can do it. Then 310 says that the tenure of the persons in the union and state has to be determined by the president or the governor. So appointment, when you are appointed, it is appointed by the president. The order that you get is that you have been appointed. All India services, appointment of central services appointed by the president. State civil services appointed by the state government. The reason is that it is slightly isolated from the political sector. The president is supposed to be neutral, the governor also is supposed to be neutral. So it's not that a minister is unhappy with you and he says that you go to hell and you are sent to the gallows. The power has been vested in the president and the governor. Of course, they act on the advice of the council of ministers, but they can do them too. They need not blindly act on the advice of that. And then we have the civil servants, they are bound by so many rules and regulations, and there is a lot of accountability. People think that civil service is not accountable. Now, if I look at the accountability of the civil service, first you are accountable to the political sector, then you are accountable to the parliament, MPs, MLAs, then there are committees of parliament, they can call you for whatever action you have taken, they can pass strictures against you. Then you have the whole hierarchy of courts. The lowest court can call the highest civil servant if they feel that certain injustice has been done by any person. So you are accountable to the whole court system. Then there are so many commissions set up by the government of India. And every day, every year at least we are adding some new commissions like the Child Rights Commission, the SC/ST Commission, the Women's Commission, then the NGT, then you have the, so every day, so you are also bound to appear before these commissions and to justify your actions. Then the Lokayuk, and you are also accountable to the public. Because, for example, in Delhi, a law was passed, time-bound delivery of services. You have to deliver the service in this many days, otherwise there was a fine. For each day's delay, there was a fine. So the fine was not very high. Because we argued that the fine should not become such that the bureaucrat who is honest becomes corrupt to pay the fine. But he must pay a token fine so that he remembers that it is more a stigma. The fine is more like a stigma. So you are accountable to the public also. And the biggest accountability is to the press. Because the press is always there, that is the job of the press, to keep a track of which officer or which public servant is behaving or misbehaving or not behaving. So this is also very big accountability. Because, I'll just give you an example. Officer of Delhi government, news came that he was walking his dog in a stadium. And everybody said, oh, such a bad person is walking his dog in the stadium. And the implication of the story also was that because he is not walking the dog in the stadium, the players are unable to practice. And therefore, this is a double crime. One that he is walking his dog, and the other is that he is preventing people from actually working for sportsmanship. The facts are not exactly the same. The fact is that he was walking his dog, but he was walking his dog after 8 o'clock, and by the time the stadium was already closed. So it was in a closed stadium that he was immediately transferred. The Home Ministry acted very fast, he was transferred, and so there is accountability to the press. Sometimes the press may feel that we keep on writing, it does not have an effect, but it does have an effect. I'm not saying the press is always wrong. Many times, most of the time I think the press will be right, but it also affects. So therefore, if you have such a whole list of accountability, you also require protection. And the Constitution fortunately has also granted certain protection to the civil services so that they are able to discharge their duties without fear. So Article 311 of the Constitution says that no person or member of civil service of the Union or All India service or a state charges against him and given a reasonable opportunity of being heard in respect of those charges. So, what is justice for a normal citizen? You must get a right to give your point of view. So that protection has been granted by the Constitution itself, because it was understood by the Constitution makers that this situation will arise. And further is that Article 312, you see, the country became independent and there was a need to set up the IIS and the IPS immediately. The Constitution came later. So Article 312 clearly said the services known at the commencement of this Constitution as the Indian Administrative Service and the Indian Police Service shall be deemed to be services created by the Parliament. So they have brought in the parliamentary control that once you create, and there is another principle that you can be punished by only the person who has a part. So for organized service, for example, the punishment has to be by the person. You cannot be punished at a lower level than the president. The file has to travel right up to the president. Even if the CBI conducts an inquiry against you, the file has to go for punishment to the president of India. Then there was a need, to how to select the civil service. And naturally, in a country which is based on democracy, on equality, and fundamental rights, it has to be merit basis. Cannot be at the whims and fancies of anybody. So the Union Public Service Commission and the State Public Service Commission were created, and they were non-political bodies. They were appointed, but they were non-political bodies, and they were further guarded. And there was a set of people who were guarded, whose conditions of service were also guarded. Under Article 312. Says that the person who is holding the office of Chief Justice or Judge of Supreme Court or the CAG, Chairman of Union State Public Service Commission, Chief Election Commissioner, their conditions of service cannot be altered once they are found. So this is another way of ensuring that the UPSC is independent of the executive, and they do. And the fact remains that in such a large examination, and MLAs are bound to occur, and nobody till date has blamed the UPSC for corruption in the process of selection. I think they must get the credit for this. That even till date, nobody has said that there is corruption in the selection. Even for promotion and other things, the UPSC has to be considered. And even if an officer has to be punished, suppose the CBI says that this Tripathi will be hanged, that will be removed from service. The UPSC is also. And I have seen personally that the only body which stands up to the CBC is the UPSC. Even ministry sometimes when you work, they get afraid because the CBI keeps on insisting. No, he has done a wrong thing, he will be punished. The ministries often cave in. And they say, okay, instead of major punishment, give him minor punishment. But UPSC, I have seen in one organization, is very strongly right that the CBI inquiry is a piece of trash, they have not applied their mind, they really tear the CBI inquiries to pieces without any fear. And actually it plays a very important role, because when the matter goes to the Prime Minister, then he has two independent bodies. One is the CBI, but other than there is UPSC. And UPSC has 11 members, so 13 members. And those members collectively are taking a decision. And therefore the civil servants are often saved by the UPSC in spite of them being elected by the CBI. So UPSC is a big bulwark, to save the. I think now I would jump because then of course there are tribunals which have also been set up to protect you. Instead of going to the court, you can also take your cases. Now briefly, time hai kya? So now I will come to the Delhi, government of LCT Delhi. Now appeared to us that this problem is of recent origin. It is not so. The problem got created when Section 239A was passed by Section 9 Amendment, because there are certain phrases where the interpretation is possible, in both either in favor of the center or in favor of the state. But before I come to that, also let me tell you that when I came to Delhi in 1983, I was secretary NDMC and Mr. Chandraji, whom most of you must have known, he is a very prominent journalist. He happened to be the CC of Delhi, chief disputed counsel, not the chief minister. And luckily, I met him within 2-3 days of my joining. I had a chance of meeting. And he took me, it was a function, but after the function, he took me separately. I was very young and very junior officer at the time. But he took me separately to a room and he said, suppose I send somebody to you. With a recommendation, what will you do? I said, sir, I will try to help him. I will try my best to see that he will answer the address. He said, yes, please help him. But don't do a wrong thing, because I have, if you try to say that no, I have him, even his request is wrong because I have been sent by the CC, you will not have my protection. Because he said it is my duty as a public officer, as an elected representative, to send people to the officer. It is your duty as a bureaucrat to examine the request and see to it whether it is possible under the law to do it or not to do it. Then of course your attitude should be helpful, not that you try not to do it. But if you try to take advantage that I have made the recommendation and therefore right or wrong, since CM is saying, CEC is saying to do it, he said I am not going to do it. And I must confess that I had the occasion of working with him for a long time, in different capacities. He never ever asked me to do it. Never ever asked me to do it. So the feeling which can be created today that bureaucrats do not want to work with politicians, they are happy to work with the Lieutenant Governor, is not right. I remember his graciousness even today, and he stood by me whenever I had trouble. Time permitting, I will tell it when time arrives, but so the respect for him did not come just because he was not the chief minister. I never thought that he is the chief executive councillor only. He is not the chief minister. So I should not respect him. No. It was his behavior, his stature, his way of dealing. That enabled, that is why he was running smoothly even without 239A community force. Now when this, after the amendment, for a few years, when it came, it was BJP and BJP government was there. It was a central state, and everybody says that it's possible because the same party, so everything is smooth. But that is not necessarily the reason why it is smooth. It is the personality which also played a very, very important role. It was, the problem started when the Home Ministry, when the Delhi government, Assembly was allowed to pass laws. Now, while passing the law, Delhi government felt that instead of saying that the government of Delhi is the Lieutenant Governor, they started saying the government of Delhi is the government of the national capital, Delhi. Now, as soon as this was done in 2-3 cases, the Home Ministry raised an objection. And the first, on 25th July, MHA issued an order saying that under Article 239A, it cannot alter the area of the LCT, and the President is accountable.
Which year is this?
This is the 26th May,
It doesn't matter.
202.
200.
202. The objection came that you cannot. And they said the government means the Lieutenant Governor. Now at that time the government was not very happy because they wanted the definition to be changed. Because when you say government of LCT, it means the Council of Ministers. But they realized that there were provisions in the Act itself, especially Section 3BC and 7, where the powers to make laws overriding the laws of the state government rested with the center. So the 69th Amendment itself contains, the seeds of its own destruction. And while they gave assembly, they said they reserved the power for the parliament. And they said if parliament passes any law, it supersedes all laws of Delhi government, passed by the assembly of Delhi. So the government examined all these factors and they realized that we have to do a lot of work. And you need the cooperation because Delhi cannot, you don't get your own water because the water comes from other states. So there will be interstate disputes, interstate issues. And you need the support of the center. When you have to persuade Haryana or Punjab or UP to give you water, if you keep on fighting, nothing will happen and you will suffer. So under those circumstances, the government decided that let the Lieutenant Governor be the charge of the government of the city, and business as usual was allowed to continue. Now in 2013, when the new government, beginning of 2014, when the new government came, they challenged this position once again. Between this period, 2002 and 2013, there was a mutual understanding, which was not written anywhere, codified, that the CM definitely must have a right to post and transfer officers up to the level, certain level, and beyond that only cases should be submitted. So people in super target scale, they had a department that those files used to go to SC. And remaining were done at the level of the secretary services, the chief secretary and the chief minister. So this got disturbed in 2014 because the government decided that we will not send any files to SC because we have the powers. And therefore only in respect of police, land and public order, the files will go to SC. Otherwise, we are competent to take the decision at our own level. We need not even send. So the understanding which was working came to a crash. And then the ministry, Home Ministry, had to step in, and on 21st May 2015, the ministry passed an order that they said that in addition to public order, police and land, services as stated above, the NGO will exercise its powers. So they expanded the scope of reserved subject and included services also into this definition. Now, before this, many other things had happened. The chief secretary had been slapped in the office of the chief minister at night. So these factors also probably went, and bureaucracy had to be taken out, marches, protests were being carried out. So the ministry decided and they passed the order that 2015 that these services also will be reserved for the ministry. And then we had a number of court cases. I think in the court cases, you see, we find that the judgments have been different. When the matter went to the High Court said no, Delhi is a union territory and it is not a state. Then the matter went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court passed a very pompous judgment where they used a lot of adjectives. And they said that the status of LCT of Delhi was neither a state nor a union territory. It was sui generis. They also admitted that by no stretch of imagination it can be related to a state. But they also had that, it is not united. Again, the matter was referred back to the High Court. The High Court double bench divergent judgments. One judge said that services fall within the purview of the State Assembly. The other judge said, it is union territory and it does not fall under it. Then finally the matter again went to the Constitution Bench, and in the last judgment the Constitution Bench said that no, government entity has both the power to legislate on services and also to have exclusive power over services. And then finally we have, the last ordinance passed by the central government, which again sets back the clock, and they say that they think the definition of entity they have been defined. That the government entity means the union territory. So they have annulled the whole thing by saying that it is a union territory. It is not a special status. And then they constituted an authority where the chief minister, the lieutenant governor, the chief minister, the chief secretary, and the home secretary. And these people will sit together and they will decide who is going to be posted, whether business cases are to be there, and on their recommendation, the LG will take a decision. Now, for the bureaucracy, this is not a very, very happy situation, because bureaucrats would like to have clarity whether they are, whom are they answerable. Today they are answerable to everybody. And I am sure that, very soon either this will become a law or it will be set aside. So, I would not like to make any recommendation where the matter before the court. But this is the dilemma which we are facing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Meeting. Now, without further ado, I request Sanjeev to come in. Is it working?
Yes, of course. Mr. Chairman, Suhas, Borker, a senior colleague at Tripathi, my distinguished passionate Borker, and my friends, ladies and gentlemen. In the true tradition of civil service, once a senior has spoken, so all the things have been done, and there's little for me to add to what he has said. But because I've been at the academy, and I just wanted to share with you that some of the concerns which people have is about the present generation of civil servants, on whether they are being able to live up to the expectations that Sardar Patel had when he actually fought for the civil service. Let me recall that it was on 21st and 22nd October 1956, when Sardar Patel was the interim home member, that he called the premiers of the 11 states in India at that time. At that time, the CMs were called premiers. And he asked them whether we should continue with the ICS and the IP and others than not. So interestingly, there was a consensus on the ICS, but not on the IP, because all chief ministers, all premiers felt that law and order or maintenance of law and order is essentially a state subject, and that the government of India is not really connected to law and order. Therefore, they agreed that there should be the ICS and the IS. They were not really convinced about the IPS or the IP continuing as an all-India service. The other very interesting thing which I wanted to share with you is that Mr. Nehru wanted to personally pick up the IFS officers. And there was a big noting between the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in which Mr. Nehru said that I need a specific style and a specific type of persons to be in the to be diplomats. In fact, if you recall, whether it was Pushpan Singh or whether it was the Raja Sarila, a lot of these people, a lot of ministers were appointed as ambassadors. So there was a big fight going on, and this matter was resolved only by 1952-53, when it was made very clear that even the recruitment and selection as diplomats cannot be arbitrary. But having said that, even then there were some posts, some positions were kept apart for political positions. So the Carter rules of the Indian Foreign Service, that there was slightly at variance on the IS and the IPS. Friends, some of the things which I thought I'd share with you is that, and the point which Mr. Tripathi made, what the CEC told him, was exactly nearly the same thing that Mr. N.T. Tiwari told me when I joined him as the Secretary Industries in Uttarakhand. And he said, look, every day people will come and every day they'll say, ye bhi kar do, wo bhi kar do. And I will keep on telling you, ye karo, abhi karo, kyun nahi ho raha hai? And sometimes I'll even, make a show that I'm slightly upset. I'll also say that bureaucracy bahut kharab hai, but you please do exactly what you want. And friends, I hope no politician is here, and I hope we follow some cat and mouse rules here. You see, I have had the privilege of working with all political parties of varying shades and dispensations. I started my career with the CPM government in Bengal, with Mr. Jyoti Basu at the helm, with 11 coalition partners, and none of these coalition partners would talk to each other. It was very good for the bureaucracy, because in order to talk to each other, they needed to, talk to us. Then I was working in GNLF areas, where Suhas teaching was a different kettle of fish altogether. It was a entirely different kettle of fish. Then I worked with the BJP regime, first in Uttarakhand on deputation, then in the DOPT. And I worked with the Congress. I went back to West Bengal and I worked with a very different Bahadur Bhattacharya, who was very different from Jyoti Basu in the sense that he was more investor friendly, and finally with Mamata Banerjee. And then again in this present tenure with the present Prime Minister and of course the tenure with Sharad Pawar. So I must confess very candidly that there is not much difference between politician A and politician B and politician C or politician D. It's just a different format of presentation. Like I would say the difference between an omelette and a poached egg and a fried egg. The nutrition value or the nuisance value or the protein value remains almost the same. So I won't say that all politicians are eggs, nor do I say that they are eggheads, but what I'm saying is that it's not very different. Likewise with us also, we are also in fact a cousin of mine whom I wanted to meet the joint secretary of another department, so I introduced him to him. He says, all of you are cut pieces of the same cloth. So whether you are joint secretary of agriculture or joint secretary of industry or joint secretary of health, you speak the same language, you speak almost the same thing. Because the fact is that there is a system that has been developed, and I think the system has done well. Look, I want to make it very clear that we are often accused, as was done in the case of yes Prime Minister, of changing our positions very often. But the fact is that it is not our job. The Constitution has not asked us to create political consensus. The Constitution has not asked for my opinion on whether there should be UCC or no UCC, whether there should be a CA or no CA. Our job is that once a law has been passed and enacted, it shall be implemented to the best of the ability. So whether it is the right to education, or the right to food, or the right to work, I can show you enough examples from bright officers of this country. We have delivered. We have delivered during COVID, we have delivered before that, and we continue to deliver. Because you have to judge a person on the basis of what he is supposed to do. You judge a cricketer on his ability to play cricket, not on his ability to play football. Like you judge a footballer on his ability to, and even with football. A goalkeeper has a specific role, and the forward has a different role. So as you judge, we have to judge bureaucrats from the yardstick and from the measure of what is it to be a good bureaucrat. I can assure you that my colleagues in the past, now of course we have only 2 serving chief secretaries, the rest of the 85 batch, we are all vintage wine. But I am talking about the new generation. The ones who are joining the service today are definitely far more competent than our time, because the competition is much tougher. It has already been stated that the UPSC process of selection is tough, is very tough. And everybody realizes that nobody is there as a matter of anybody's grace. Whoever occupies the chair of a civil servant in this country is there because of his merit and because of her hard work. I use the word her hard work because now 35% of the present batch of UPSC selectees are women, and I have no doubt that over the next 3 or 4 years we shall have 50% or more, and maybe after another 30-40 years we might have to reserve seats for men because we don't seem to be doing very well. I'll bring you to an anecdote, because in 1922 for the first time the ICS exam was held in India. It was called the India exam. by 1920s, there were more Indians who were being selected in the ICS than Europeans. Therefore, they thought of a London quota of 40% and an Allahabad quota of 40%. Therefore, a lot of Indians had to go to London to take the exam from London because it was easier to qualify the London exam than to qualify the Allahabad exam. You know, so I think the same is going to happen. I mean, you might have to reserve for 20-30% seats for men in the UPSC in the years to come, but that was on a lighter note. On a serious note, friends, it is a fact that when Sir was being trained and Parimal and I were being trained, Shambhu was being trained, we were being told that, you are stars, you are magnets, you will change the world. That the politician is a necessary irritant, is an unnecessary irritant. That was wrong thing. I have no hesitation in saying that was wrong thing. We have to work with the political executive. And nowadays it is very clear that we have to work in teams. It is very, very clear that civil service, unless we all work together, unless we work with our counterparts and colleagues in the health service, in the legal service, in the IPS, we don't work with the architect, we don't work, unless we do team building, we will not succeed. So the message of the academy today is teamwork. The message of the academy today is non-adversarial communication. How do you say no without offending the other person? I'll close by these wonderful lines which I told Mr. Borker today, and that is, Alexander Pope, rape of the lock, when Belinda was refusing every suitor, and it was said that, she rejected all but offended none. So, that is the way we have to learn to communicate. So friends, this is what I have to say very briefly, but I'm sure there will be many questions that you might like to ask. In this generation of officers, the last 3 or 4 years, we've done work on things which are new. You see, because the fact is that India is urbanizing. It is no longer a rural country. It is a country which is going to be very diverse. It's a country in which migration, demographic change, aspirations, and as I quoted in one of my chapters somewhere else, was that it is not that we have not performed well or that we are not doing better than the past. The fact is that expectations will always rise higher than anybody's ability to do things. So what has happened is that expectations have risen faster than the ability of any government to deliver. And that will always be a dilemma. I mean, the better you deliver, the more is the expectation from you. So welcome to rising expectations and thereby some frustrations which all of us will have. Thank you, Mr. Borker, for giving us another chance.
I'll just mention quickly an anecdote which is again from this book. And you see, Gadgil, N.V. Gadgil, this is 1948. N.V. Gadgil, he was the minister in the first cabinet of Nehru, and he is on a visit to Bombay to inspect some CPWD works. So he and then my father at that time, he was the private secretary to Gadgil, they are invited for lunch by the superintendent engineer. The superintendent engineer in those those days was a big guy, So, Still is, okay. So he's invited and then he serves them lunch on silver thalis. Those days, silver thalis serving is another big thing. So anyway, they have lunch and it's very well, they served Maharashtrian food, and then they vote their hours and they are up going to the next inspection. So Gadgil asks my dad there that, this guy, how is it that he could serve in silver thalis? By the evening I want an inquiry done on where he got the money to buy silver thalis and serve us, because this guy must be corrupt. So then my father tells him that Kaka, he calls Gadgil, and he says, Kaka, did you not see? There was letters in English printed on each thali, and it said MGH. So he got it. He got these thalis from the Mafatlal guest house because he didn't have proper place to serve them. So he got them from the Mafatlal guest house to serve you in honor. So then Garfield says, stop the car, I want to go back and apologize to that man for having thought that he was corrupt. Now can you imagine this in today's scenario? So the whole convoy of 4 cars moves back and the superintendent engineer is called out, and superintendent engineer is virtually shivering that the minister has come back when everything was over, and I tried to serve him well, good lunch. So then he folds his hands and apologizes. The cabinet minister, union cabinet minister, apologizes to that CPWD superintendent engineer for having thought that he was corrupt. He folds his hand. Now can you imagine all this? So then I come to a question which I put to both of them. That is, now this is 1973 and C.D. Deshmukh. Now all the 3 of us are holding offices in the IIC, and this was founded by this administrator. So we are kind of reading him a lot these days. So he says, no civil servant is any longer appreciated for speaking or writing without fear or favor. Now this is 1973. So Indira Gandhi is there at that time. And then he further says that the generation of political leaders have thoroughly demoralized public servants. Now I would like both of you to respond to this comment, because if you talked of politicals, so how is this interaction going to happen to serve the public and these politicos banging your heads? Would you comment?
Well, I think on this subject people have diverse experiences. I was extremely lucky that I got to work with people, with ministers, chief ministers who were very, very considerate, very efficient, and they did not tell us to do wrong things. As I told you, I worked with Mr. Chandra in the first initial 7 years when I was in Delhi, and there was not a single, I will quote you an instance. If somebody approached him, and I was in DTA, and DTA was not really under the chief minister, but he rang me and he said, you, मेरा बड़ा लंगोटिया यार है और आपको तो इसका काम करना ही पड़ेगा. And then within my hearing, he asked him, तो दादा तेरा नाम क्या? So the message was कि लंगोटिया यार इतना अच्छा है, इसका नाम ही नहीं पता मुझे. So and he had told me politicians have compulsion. So he took that much of trouble because he did not leave it to chance. He gave me a signal that examine it on merit. So I am saying and telling you, I think I am extremely lucky to have him. Then I was lucky to have worked with Mrs. Dixit. And she is no more, but the fact is that there is not a single instance where she put pressure. In fact, you will not believe it. One day what happened that she came to me when I was a principal secretary, and somebody must have told her, so she made a recommendation for posting of a sub-registrar. Now we all know that sub-registrars make money. So I took that recommendation because the policy was that we will check with business and others. If he is otherwise all right, then we will consider. But before I could pass even go to that examination, 2-3 officers from my office came to me. And they said, sir, he is a very bad person and I don't know who has given it to CM. And she is being misguided. So don't do it. So I kept quiet. I said, if that is the case, then being a politician, somebody must have approached her. Then she again after a week asked me what has happened to that request. And I told her to ma'am, the people in the office told me that this is not a good person and therefore his case should not be recommended by us at least from the CM's office, otherwise we will be seen in bad light. She did not tell me that you do it. A normal many chief minister would have said, I want this order by evening. She said, okay, my recommendation will be overruled, so fine. But from today, nobody in my office will make a recommendation. Only you are allowed. Because I was a principal secretary, she did not guard me. But she guarded the rest of her office because she knew that they had poisoned my ears about her recommendation. But she did not overrule. And that man was not. But nobody in this office will now from today will have a right to make a recommendation for posting. Only the principal secretary will have a right to look into it. So politicians come in all, as you were saying, they all shapes and sizes. And all types of politicians are there. So it is wrong to say that politicians are always bad. Majority, yes, maybe majority of politicians today are difficult to work with. Because when I was in DD, I had a lot of problems. And once the worst period which I had was not with any politician, but with the lieutenant. The most difficult part was working with a lieutenant governor who was a civil servant. And I used to count my days, how will I survive and how will I be able to spend my time. And it was a great relief when he was transferred. He was removed from the post. So I don't think it is universally correct, but yes. Majority, I think Sanjeev has a wider experience because duties you have a narrow. Even in Andamans, there was no CM, but there was a member of parliament, Mr. Maranjan Bhakta. Never did he ask me to do it. Never.
So I suppose the current generation of officers is dealing with a new party which is non-ideological and which is on its own. You see, there is a major difference between all India political parties which have a central authority to whom redressal can be made. So whether it is the CPM or the Congress or the BJP, there are checks and balances. And then you have parties which are totally CM driven or totally on their own. So there it is a bit more difficult. So I would imagine that we have worked under different circumstances, therefore things could be very different.
Yeah.
For example, working with the current CM of Bengal is definitely more difficult than when we were dealing with a CM from the CPM. Because, when you are an all India political party, there are some checks and balances which come naturally. So those are things which are certainly there. Now, having said that, I think one of the things that you got to understand is the nature of power. The nature of power is that you don't want to share. It's all very easy to say that you want to share power. Nobody wants to share power. And one of the things which I wanted to draw your kind attention to for this group was that as per the Constitution, a lot of power had to be decentralized to the 73rd and the 74th Amendment to Zilla Panchayats and municipalities. That has not been done. Because no political party in this country, except for the CPM for some time, and Ramakrishna Hegde in Karnataka, and for some time in Maharashtra, were some powers given to the Zilla Panchayats. Otherwise, all political parties have tended to ignore these institutions. The basic conflict that comes today is that the MLAs and the MPs think that they are responsible for their constituency. Well, legally they are not. Legally, if there is a problem in the constituency relating to health or education or drinking water, it is not the legislature's job. It is not the legislature's job because the law or the constitution does not ask the MLA or the MP to sort that problem. Right? That is where the whole conflict comes. The conflict comes because by the law, these are things that have to be done either by the district magistrate or by the CMOH or by the district health officer or whatever. But the MLAs feel that it is their job to do things. So I think there is a little bit of lack of role clarity on what, and MLAs don't get elected because they want to legislate. Parliamentarians do not get elected because they want to legislate. In fact, if you were to look at the total time which the MLAs and the MPs spend as per the constitutional mandate on what their core job is, then the scorecard may not be very bright. So I think there is also the need to understand and explain to the political leadership that this is not your job. It's easier said than done. It is very difficult to do it. And for all practical purposes, we are moving towards a almost presidential form of government, where the CMs call the shot, where the PMs call the shot, and the entire way in which, but the civil service is not to blame for this, because our job is very distinctly and very clearly defined.
Just one quick one before I open the questions, the floor. You see, Praveenji and Sanjeev, the NSA was addressing the IPS officers passing out function in Hyderabad. This was somewhere 2 years back in 2021. And he said that you should treat the civil society as the fourth generation of warfare that can be subverted, suborned, divided and manipulated to hurt the interests of the nation. Now, this is a very serious kind of a sentiment which he expressed, which is very antithetical to any democratic dispensation. So, how would you comment on that? That the fourth generation of warfare, civil society. Yeah.
Statement. Hello. The statement appears to be correct to the extent that we are living in the age of information and fake information. So if you want to subvert any society, the most lethal weapon that we have is fake news. So then every day, we get on our mobiles, fake news. And once you read it, you really sometimes, if you are not critical, you don't analyze it critically, you get emotional. Then ऐसा हो सकता है. And when you go deeper into it, you find it is fake news. But so therefore, if you want to subvert any society, you have to divide it, and you have to divide it on various. There are certain natural divisions in any society, whether it is based on religion, or whether it is based on region, or whether it is based on caste. So if you start this war, and you don't treat the society as a homogeneous society, and you want to divide, then this is the best form of our warfare. But the result is going to be very bad.
This is not a comment made by him in this capacity as a civil servant. I will not comment. I will give you a perfectly correct. This is not a statement made by the cabinet secretary. It is not a statement made by the director of IT. This is a statement made by somebody above the pay grade of the civil servant. So he is entitled to his views, and I will not comment on it.
Fine. So we'll go ahead.
Sir, Mr. Chopra,
Just identify yourself, please.
my name is Narayan. I'm a journalist. Mr. Chopra, we just spoke about how IAS officers are on their own merit, having cleared the examination. They've trained over the years in various departments at various levels. Okay, all agreed, accepted. It's a universal. But of late, if you see this government has been doing a lot of lateral injection. How do you see this development? One, if officers are inducted at a lateral level, like joint secretary level, how far they should stay in these posts? Because there are few examples. After having joined key infrastructure ministries, these people go back to the same corporates where they come from. Thank you.
Well, empirically, there's only one instance of this kind that has happened. There have been about 48 lethal inductees, of them one has turned out to be a bad egg, so we cannot use that as an example. Believe you me, I'm a vegetarian, so I have no, I talk about eggs, it is not any negative thing. No, the point is that you see, there is lateral entry has always been happening. From Kushwant Singh to B.N. Haksar, to B.P. Dhar, all these are lateral entrants. Manmohan Singh himself was a lateral entrant. At least now the lateral entrants come through a process. I mean, the UPSC invites applications and they are screened, they are selected. And lateral entrants are not, it is not arbitrary. You see the list. It is in IT, it is in civil aviation, it is in agricultural marketing and extension. Right, so to that extent, I think where the government feels there is a shortage of specific talent for that job, if there is lateral entrant, and if the lateral entrant is being selected in a manner which is fair and transparent, I do not see a problem.
But whose interest do they serve?
No, you see,
But given that one example,
frankly, Narayan, you see, the point is that anyone can serve anyone's interest, but empirically, that one instance has been blown up, has been blown apart. So I think we should, and again, let me put it like this. It is the discretion of the political executive. It is very much within the discretion of the political executive to have lateral election, not have lateral election. It is his space. And the other thing that is good that is happening now is that the lateral entrants are also being trained by the Institute of Public Administration, by the LBS, National Academy of Administration, and therefore they might do some good work. So there is no, look, one thing is for sure, that the ICS and the IAS, especially the ICS, it was performing services in an undifferentiated society. In a society where almost everything was the same. Today we are dealing with a very complex society. And there are some things which the IAS will do very well, there are some things which the IPS will do very well, there are some things which if an external specialist comes, I mean, if you look into there would be a pool of about 600 joint secretaries to the country. So if you have about 20, 30 inductees at any point of time, I don't think it affects the overall scenario. And the other thing is that when I talk to the lateral entrants, they say that they find it very difficult to work because the fact is that the system will remain the same. I mean, a joint secretary who is on the lateral entry, he will also have to make a cabinet note. When you make a cabinet note, the cabinet note will still require interministerial consultation. It will still have to have all the processes, and he or she will have the same frustrations, the same joys as well, which a regular joint secretary will have.
My name is Naresh Sagar. I am a journalist. So my question is that don't go by the next statement I gave you in a hard note. You know, the administrative services, they are highly qualified people, that we all agree. They go through a lot of journeys, education, everything. But why they are not successful and they don't have the pulse of the people? You see the Manipur riots, you see the riots everywhere. What do you feel is lacking in administrative service? Let me complete my question. I'll give you full time, sir. Give me some time. So the pulse of the people and the people of this country, where you are supposed to be most highly intellectual people who are running, along with the politician, and politicians say we know the pulse of the people. So what is difference between the politician and the administration?
So as far as the political pulse is concerned, I have made it very clear that is entirely the politician's domain. It is not the bureaucrats. We have to be responsible. But what policies the government wants, that is entirely up to the government. Now, if Manipur is a fit case of president's rule, it is not for the chief secretary to recommend that there should be president's rule. It's not the chief secretary's job. Let us understand what is our job. If the DM has not given the report that the situation is going to be difficult, then it's a different matter. But if you have given your reports, if you've given everything, if there is such violent interface, in fact, if you look at it, the other people have said that they don't trust the CM. Nobody has raised questions about other people. So these are all political things. I mean, whether it's the insurgency in Punjab, in GNL, all these things. I mean, who can solve? I'll give you an example, GNL. I mean, ultimately, who can resolve that problem? The GNLF problem can be resolved only by a political party sitting together and discussing things with Mr. Gishing. As a civil servant, I can ensure that I can prevent rioting in society. I can ensure that before something is burnt, I can get the fire brigade to reach there. I can keep the morale of the police forces high. I can give confidence to the bazaar merchants that you please open your shop, I'll be with you. I can do a flag march, I can do public meeting. But ultimately, whether Gorkha schedule is given under the 5th schedule or the 6th schedule or a statehood is granted to them, it is not my job. Let us be very clear. Do not hold us responsible for what our job is not. Hold us responsible for what our job is. And there when we make mistakes, we'll be glad to accept it. Yes, we have made mistakes in the past and we'll continue to try to improve. That's what I like to say.
I just want, I would like to, that strikes a chord. I'd like to ask both of you, can the civil service save itself from the ideological battles which we are facing?
No.
No, just one second. The ideological battles by which we are facing in the country, by saying that the constitution is our ideology. So, if that gives you an anchor to protect the constitution and also protect yourself by the constitution.
My dear sir, it's a very generic statement that you are making. Take a very controversial issue, the UCC, Uniform Civil Code. Is it my job to tell whether the UCC should be there or not? Elections have been fought on this. I won't use that language in nation as but it's a political question. Whether there should be UCC or no UCC, I have no strong, I may have views as an individual, but as a civil servant, I have no views on this. And why should I have a view on this? Whether you have good relations with Pakistan or not, whether you accept
I'm not saying that. No, you're going beyond what I am asking you is that can the constitution be an ideology for the civil servant? After all,
Also, point is that the constitution, we take both under the constitution. So there is no debate that we are bound by the constitution. But in the practical life, the debate is never like this. The politician never tells you not to follow the constitution. He will give his point of view. You cannot tell him that no, this is not as per the constitution. So the debate never emerges in this form. The debate emerges that you will quote the rules. Instead of taking the constitution, you quote the rules, your recommendation is there, but I have my limitations under this law, this procedure, this enactment, I will not be able to do it. It will require your approval, it will require the approval of the cabinet, it may require the approval of the assembly. That is how we put it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Maybe this is not being heard.
We just come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's also the youngest participant.
Hi, I'm Nupur Sharma from the print and I cover UPSC and bureaucracy. So my question is, the present government has laid emphasis on unification of various policies like one nation, one ration card, etc. Don't you think the functions of DCs and DMs should also be unified and sterilized?
I think it's very clear. India is a union of states, right?
Yes.
All states will have their own land laws, all states will have their own revenue codes, all states will have their own complexities and their own situations and their own historical precedent to follow. So, and many things are common. For example, all DMs follow the Criminal Procedure Code. All DMs follow the Indian Evidence Act. All civil servants follow the same GPC. So, but complete uniformity is not really possible or even desirable because we are a union of states. Our services are given to the state government. So when I go and speak for the government of Uttarakhand or the government of West Bengal, I am duty bound to protect the interests of West Bengal or of Uttarakhand, which may at times be at slight variance. Well, take a very simple thing. I'll give you an example. When it comes to packaging in jute, Punjab says that you should use synthetics, you should use polyester, because it is cheaper, better, and grains do not spoil. So if I am the Agricultural Secretary of Punjab, I will say yes, we should do all our packaging in polyester. If I am a secretary, Agriculture Secretary in Bihar or Bengal or Jharkhand or Assam, I will say no, everything should be done in jute. Now, because everybody has different interests, and so be it. So be it. Where is the problem in that? Some states would want procurement, some states would not want procurement, some states would want a higher price, some states would not want a higher price. There is a difference between consuming states and states which are, see, a state which has to buy wheat will want wheat to be cheaper, a state which has to sell wheat will want that wheat to be higher. So it is not such an easy, thing, as Mr. Tripathi had said. We are a very, very complex country, and we got to recognize and celebrate this complexity. We don't have to get too bogged by it. And we cannot have one policy for everything. It's not possible. You can't even have one packaging policy, because Uttarakhand's demands would be very different from the demands of this place. Take the case of high-tech agriculture, high-tech horticulture, capital-intensive agriculture. Every state, every farmer, in fact, why go far? The demands of the marginal farmer, are different from the demands of a large farmer. The demands of a farmer who has irrigation is different from the demands of a farmer who has no access to irrigation. The demands of a farmer for fertilizer also vary. So I'm telling you about a sector which I know about a little bit. When it comes to fishing, I mean, those who have trawlers will say, let's go in for mechanized fishing. Those who don't have trawlers will say, why do you go in for mechanized fishing? So it's a very complex situation, and there can be no easy answers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Ren Bhushan, sir. I'm a journalist. I just wanted to ask, a number of all India officers, including IS officers, have been paid off in the last month. They've been asked to go. How do you look at it on charges that raise corruption or to other things? Any of them have been asked to go by the central government, including IS officers.
The majority were IRS officers.
Yeah, but
Majority were IRS officers.
Sure,
And let me tell you, some of those who have gone are those who had a terrible reputation. So no comments on that. I mean, see, look, there would be bad people in every service. There were bad people in the ICS also. So all this myth that the ICS was great and that the IS, you see, every batch, every generation thinks that, they were the best, and after that they decline. Let me give you 3 or 4 instances. You see, in 1918, when Mr. Deshmukh topped the ICS exam, many ICS people felt this is the end of the ICS. Arey, ye to Hindustani bhi top kar gaya. In 1922, when the exam started happening in India, they said, "Hey, to kharab ho gaya, this has started happening." So every 20 years, there's somebody or the other who feels that is the end. Till 1979, the principal qualification of qualifying the exam was the knowledge of English language, right? Till 1979. After 1979, we had a big diversity in terms of people who are coming in. So people who are now coming in may not be from Stevens, they may not be from Allahabad University, they may not be from JNU, they come from very small towns, they come from very different backgrounds, but their commitment and their passion for work and their ability, and let me tell you, in 2019, I had asked all the probationers to go and visit brick kilns in the country and carry out their empirical and their report on how they felt. And the reports which these officers have come out with will bring tears to your eyes. So it is one thing to say that, communication. I think there is a major churn that's happening in our society, and the changing composition of the IAS also reflects that.
Right. Let me just add a little bit to this. There has been some talk of it, that the central government might want a scenario where they also have a hold on IS officers in the states in terms of posting. Do you see that happening?
I don't see that as a very practical option, because CMs are not going to give away this power, and neither should they give away this power. You see, actually the country needs strong PMs, strong CM, strong mayors. In fact, I think one of the biggest anomalies in this country is that large metros should have a mayor with the police commissioner and the municipal commissioner reporting to them rather than to a third party, and that is something that no state government is willing to allow. That actually is a violation of the 73rd, 74th Amendment.
Indeed.
We should be talking about that.
Yeah. But
And we as a civil service have no problem. I mean, I can work with the Sabhadipati, I can work with the Gram Pradhan, I can work with the Prime Minister, I can work with the CM, I have no problem.
Yeah.
The problem which politicians have inter se is much more than my problem with the politician.
indeed.
The politicians hate each other. I mean, they're rare, because they compete with each other. I mean, all the time. You see, so the agriculture minister in a particular state, I mean, he is looking at himself as the CM has no problem with me. The CM has a problem with the agriculture minister.
Yeah.
The CM has a problem with the finance minister. That is why if you see, ask the question, why have CM retained 50% of portfolios? Ask, go to any state today.
Yeah.
Whether it is Delhi or it is Haryana, I mean, Delhi is an exception where the CM does everything without committing anything. Again, not to be recorded. But the fact is that in most state government, CM will take finance, they'll keep home, they'll keep personnel, और बाकियों को दे दो इधर जो भी है. Are they willing to share power? They are not.
No, but assuming you have an ordinance, assuming you have an ordinance like the one you have in Delhi, and here you have a government which says here I'm going to get the IS officers now according to our ways. Assuming the central government says that, using the ordinance rule.
I assume there was a situation where this was there, it was there, but it didn't happen the way you are thinking it happened. There was complete harmony because both parties understood each other and they had come to understanding. In fact, I can vouchsafe that the most smooth period which Mrs. Dixit had was when the BJP was in the center and the Congress was in the center. There were more problems when the Congress was in the center and the Congress was in the center. When we had Mr. Chidambaram as the Home Minister, there was much more interference in the affairs of Delhi than when Mr. Advani was Home Minister. So everything cannot be done by only laws and rules. You have to think what is in the welfare of the state. And if the Chief Minister starts thinking what is in the welfare of the state, then the Chief Minister will not stand on the ego issue.
Right.
He will be willing to go an extra mile, assuage the ego of the person who can help you, and try to get a decision in favor of the people.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Samar Hussain from Indian Express. I have 3 questions. It would be great. Short answers would also do. So my first questions are that what are your views on the advisory authority for transfer postings created under the recent Delhi ordinance? In your opinion, do you think that unelected bureaucrats should outnumber elected bureaucrats and determine the transfer postings and vigilance actions against the bureaucrats?
Okay, can you come? You have 3 questions.
Yeah.
So finish them.
My second question is,
So
do
this
you...
was 2 questions. Please count.
I will consider this to be one question.
Okay, you have the freedom.
Do you think there shall be fixed tenures for civil servants in important postings to ensure greater independence? And my third question is specifically to Mr. Tripathi. So there were suggestions about making NDMC into a union territory without an assembly, and but making the rest of Delhi a state, a full state. So what are your views on that?
As Sanjeev had explained, it is not our job to take political decisions. So within that, I will try to answer your query. You see, it is well accepted that long tenures are always good for governance. If you have a rotating policy that every 3 months, 6 months, officer is transferred, then it is impossible to deliver. Because today, the biggest problem I find is that people have lost faith. It's not that I posted, so everybody will think and I say that I am going to do great things. People will believe me. No. It takes time to establish your credibility. It also takes time to understand the issues, because the issues are very complex. So it is a well accepted principle of governance that officers, as far as possible, must be given long tenures and fixed tenures. Because I tell you that for the corrupt officers, short tenures are better. Because they can do whatever they want to do, and then they will blame it on the government. Can मुझे तो टाइम नहीं मिला, इसके पहले मैं तो कर ही नहीं पाया. If you give him 3 years, then he cannot hide behind the fact that he did not have time. So long tenures are absolutely essential. As far as the constitution of our authority is concerned, See, this has been a recommendation of the Supreme Court for the police that the posting and transfer should not be done by one person. In Delhi also for many years the police commissioner, they have a committee, and the committee makes recommendations which are sent by the police commissioner to the lieutenant governor for approval. So a committee system is always better because you can have different points of view expressed there. Instead of, otherwise, the chief minister or somebody who is in authority saying this is to be done, and then there is only one person who has to oppose him or give him a suggestion. The CM or the person in authority also will be happy to get a feedback from 2-3 people. So it is always better to have a concentrated process. Now, whether there should be 2 bureaucrats and 1 CM, that is a separate issue. Whether normally I would, what used to happen in my time is that the bureaucrats used to make the proposals. CM never made the proposals for posting and transfer. The proposals always came from the bureaucracy, giving reasons, and the CM had the prerogative of accepting or rejecting it. And 99.9% the recommendations of the bureaucracy were accepted and sent to the LG and accepted there also. See, it all depends upon whether you have trust or not. See, no government can work without trust. So this question, technically, I can't answer because there will be 2 sides of the coin that but do you want to have 2 politicians and 1 bureaucrat? Then the CM would not like. The CM would not like. CM would not like to have 2 politicians and 1 bureaucrat to decide the posting and transfer.
Okay, as far as the Delhi thing is concerned, I have argued in my book, we the people of the state of Bharat, that Delhi actually should have the NDMC, cantonment and the Aero City area as a direct, completely under a joint secretary in the government of India, because that is where the union government must exercise complete control. But as the rest of Delhi is concerned, it is better to be merged with some more regions, and it should be a state or a UT with little powers from the urban development and the other thing, because what you actually need is a very small area, and Delhi has actually expanded. Delhi has expanded, to such an extent that in between the NCR would have started covering such a large area, and it was only a matter of time before the NCR would have become NCR. So my own feeling is that the government of India certainly needs the entire diplomatic area, the NDMC area, and I would say cantonment, which is now going to be abolished, and Aero City, so that from Palam up to the Rashtrapati, I would say right up to Red Fort, where the Prime Minister has to give us 15th August thing, that should be directly with the government of India. The rest, what happens in Chadra, Janakpuri, Mongolpuri, all these areas, that is for the elected government to decide what they have to do. That's my views post my retirement. Because after retirement, we become very easy imaginative.
When the Mughal Empire was disintegrating, they used to say, जो फरमान है दिल्ली का वो पालम तक ही चलता है. Anyway, that was that joke.
So,
well, we just take 2 more because the gentleman has another video. Yeah, so yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mr. Tripathi and Sanjeev, of course, I'm Professor Neelam Mahajan. I've been in media for 30 years and I have been Additional Director General of Doordarshan News. So I've had very close interaction with the Ministry of Information Broadcasting, political leaders, common man, covering elections and so on. I want to ask a specific question from Sanjeev and to you, Mr. Tripathi, if you allow. It is on Kashmir.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, if they're free,
It's not a difficult question because
Yeah, go ahead,
Kashmir is very much a part of India, it's a crown of India. But, the thing is that there have been so many governments and the Ministry of Home Affairs, as you know better than me, always has a department which deals with Kashmir. So why is it that after 76 years of our independence, we are not able to win over the hearts of the people of Kashmir? Because if we say that Kashmir is a part of India, that the people of Kashmir also are a part of India. And as a bureaucrat, and bureaucrats have headed that state as lieutenant governors and governors. So I would like to have a brief comment of yours because I am from Kashmir. I've been given a title of daughter of Kashmir and I'm very
Fine.
emotional about it.
Okay.
Sir, all the questions.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. South, you have the mic.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
No, actually, you see, recently Prime Minister said in Parliament, IAS Civil Aviation Secretary बनना चाहते हैं, Agriculture Secretary बनना चाहते हैं, Fertilizer Secretary, and so forth. Possibly they would like to fly the plane as well.
He didn't say that.
Yeah, no, whatever, I mean,
Don't put words in the.
no, I'm not putting words, but he said that. They want to do this, they want to do that, they want to be posted here, they want to be posted there. So this is coming from none else than the Prime Minister. You know,
Sir, the point is that the Prime Minister also sends messages to the IAS saying that you are very competent. The Prime Minister makes many speeches. You can't take one speech of the Prime Minister as the standard.
Parliament, it is in Parliament, that's the, my point is, no, I'm not.
What is the question? What is the
Question is, so when such questions are raised by Prime Minister, so how do you reflect critically on the civil?
Such comments have been made by many Prime Ministers in the past. Mr. Nehru was never very keen on the ICS or the IA. It's okay, you see, because when he comes and addresses the IAS officers, the Statue of Unity, there he gives a very different feel. There he tells them that the country is dependent on you. You see, and so you have to take all statements in a context. I mean, I have this book, as you see the copies of the administrator. He's now launched the Mission Karmyogi. So what is the whole purpose of launching the Mission Karmyogi? But I'm not going into that. It should not affect us. I mean, the Prime Minister could be happy with us, could be unhappy with us. The fact is that you are being recruited, you have a specific job to do, we should try to do our job well, to the best of our ability. The logo of the IAS is Yoga Karmas to Kwasla. Let me draw your attention to that. It says that our job is to do our work, and we'll do our work. Some people will be critical, some people will be uncritical. In fact, there is no situation where everybody will be praising you. It is not possible. So we will always get our share of the flack. We will always get some bit of, when he comes and speaks at the Prime Minister's award for civil servant, there he gives a very different picture, so it's okay. No
No,
problem.
the other thing is that an IAS officer's tenure is from 35 years, is it? 36 years.
38 years.
And the Prime Ministers come and go, you know. So that's okay. They'll
I
say
don't
what
know
they
what
want.
to say. I have not said that. This is Mr. Borker.
No, I'm
The
saying
press man said.
Prime Ministers come and go, but the civil servant remains.
ये Borker साहब मिस्टेक है हमारी नहीं है हमें आप हमें मत उसमें आप and ma'am as far as sir आपका question था आपने sorry
Mike.
I'm a news analyst. First thing, what I can try is your role is as Bhishma
very tall order sir
Second is, a lot is being discussed about chemistry between bureaucracy and politicians, bureaucracy and politics. But I just want your opinion or comment between chemistry between bureaucracy and judiciary. That's what I want.
हमारा इतना ज़्यादा कोई जुडिशरी के साथ कोई बहुत ज़्यादा कोई झगड़ा नहीं होता है वो बीच बीच में हमें बुलाते हैं कंटेम्प्ट के लिए इसके लिए उसके लिए फिर बाद में उनको जब हमारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट में आना होता है तो बोलते हैं थोड़ी गाड़ी कर देना सर्किट हाउस तो दोस्ती भी हो जाती है you know it's a
Give and take.
please let us understand it's a बहुत hard and fast rule नहीं it's not a very hard and fast rule you see because all justices also need us we also need the justices so it's a mutual sort of a thing because you see अब जब आते हैं जजेस उनको भी तो थोड़ा आउट ऑफ टर्न वो देखना होता है ये देखना होता है केदारनाथ के दर्शन करने होते हैं हेमकुंड साहब जाना होता है then they seek our help in that तो वहाँ उनकी हेल्प कर देते हैं वो कभी कभी बहुत सीरियस है but on the whole our issue is and again with politicians you see in a 36-year career you would always have about 30 years in which you had a good relation with them you will have 3 or 4 years of bad relation with them you will have indifferent relation वो घर में भी तो ऐसे होता है I mean, we can't get along with our children, we can't get along with our spouses. I mean, 36 is a long time to have a smooth relationship with anybody. I don't think anybody can have it. So
Ups and downs.
ups and downs तो होंगे सर थोड़ा बहुत rough, थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर, थोड़ा बहुत नीचे will take it in a stride. Neelam ji, I cannot really comment. Kashmir is such a complex, it is such a complex story that there are so many people who are responsible. It is not just one person who is responsible. There are actually no heroes there, because everybody, you name somebody and you can find that he or she has done something which is odd. So whether it is Sheikh Abdullah, whether it is Prime Minister Nehru, whether it is Jinnah, whether it is the army commanders over there, whether it was the first Ghulam Mohammad Bakshi, everybody is complicit there. Everybody is complicit there, and therefore it's very difficult to say anything. It's a story which we can only hope to learn lessons from and build brighter future, because now at the risk of, because now I'm a historian, it was an artificial state. I mean, the whole of Jammu, Kashmir, Ladakh and Tibet is an artificial state. I mean, there's no organic link between Jammu and Kashmir. There's no organic link between Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh and between Tibet. The name of the state before 1947 was Jammu wa Kashmir wa Tibet wa Ladakh ha. This was the official name of Jammu and Kashmir. And again, to go back in history, I mean, it happened because the Britishers didn't let Ranjit Singh come this side of Satluj. Had they allowed him to come this side of Satluj, he would have, moved to the Red Fort. But they said that you can't cross Satluj, so he went up and he, got Afghanistan. Afghanistan captured kiya, wahan se, so he moved on to that. So it's a different thing. So I will not like to, comment on that, except that it's and fortunately now, you see, there is no organic unity. I mean, that organic unity which is there in some states is not there, and it's for us to recognize, and therefore the greater the autonomy that is given to various regions, that perhaps may be so.
I think we'll just take the last one, the gentleman there.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sanjay. I'm a journalist. I'm also a member of the India International Center. Thank you. My question is that both of you have been senior retired officials of the Indian bureaucracy. You have been harping on the fact that the constitution is what you follow, and politician decision has to be taken by politicians. Of late, we have seen a lot of retired bureaucrats, having a proclivity and sort of sort of polarizing, in terms of writing a letter, signing from different cadres. That was not the case earlier, 20 years back, 30 years back. How do you see this trend? It clearly indicates that the bureaucracy also is now sort of divided on ideological lines.
Very tough question. Very tough question. I don't think Mr. Tripathi and I belong to either group. We are a perfect bureaucrats. We are not in either group. One group calls itself this and the other group calls itself that. I think they are free. You see, because after retirement, we are a free citizen of this country. You can do what you want to do. It's not right. Thank you.
So thank you. I think you've been a very good audience, and